Here's why Alicent supports House Black in the Battle of the Gullet after fleeing from King's Landing. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe if you love House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and deep dives into Westerosi lore. Let's begin. In the aftermath of the Targaryen Civil War, known as the Dance of the Dragons, one unexpected figure reshaped the tides of loyalty and betrayal. Queen Dowager Alicent Hightower. Once the staunch matriarch of House Green and mother to King Aegon II, Alicent made headlines across Westeros by throwing her support behind her former enemies, House Black. But why? What could have driven the Queen Mother to turn her back on her son and her house? Today, we dive deep into the lore, betrayal, loss, and shifting allegiances that led Alicent Hightower to side with House Black during the Battle of the Gullet, one of the most brutal naval battles in Westerosi history. The context: Dance of the Dragons begins. To understand Alicent's change of heart, we must go back to the origins of the Dance of the Dragons, the brutal civil war between the Greens and the Blacks. The Greens supported the claim of Aegon II, Alicent's son, to the Iron Throne. The Blacks, on the other hand, backed Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, the named heir of King Viserys. When King Viserys died, Alicent and Ser Otto Hightower, her father and the Hand of the King, concealed his death and quickly moved to install Aegon II as king. This act set in motion a war that would decimate House Targaryen, their dragons, and much of the realm. Alicent, at the beginning of the war, was a symbol of power and tradition, a woman clinging to the belief that male lineage trumped even the king's declared wishes. She stood firm behind her son and plotted against Rhaenyra and her allies. But time and tragedy would change her. The cost of war: Alicent's loss and disillusionment. As the war unfolded, Alicent saw her house and her family fall apart. Her second son, Aemon Targaryen, the dragon rider of Vhagar and perhaps the Green's most powerful warrior, was killed by Rhaenyra's son, Daemon Targaryen, at the battle above the God's Eye. It wasn't just a loss of power, it was personal devastation. Then came the horror of King's Landing. When Rhaenyra finally seized the capital, she enacted brutal retribution on those loyal to the Greens. Though Alicent's life was spared, she was imprisoned, humiliated, and her allies killed or scattered. She witnessed the madness of the war, the civilians trampled under dragon wings, the cities burning, the alliances crumbling. But perhaps most devastatingly, Alicent began to question whether her son, Aegon II, truly deserved the throne. Rumors of his erratic behavior, cruelty, and alcoholism were rampant. As the realm collapsed around them, Aegon II retreated into violence and paranoia. To Alicent, the war had started as a fight for order and legitimacy, but it devolved into chaos, and her once righteous cause became drenched in blood. Fleeing King's Landing, Allisons Escape. In this alternate lore interpretation, we imagine that Alicent managed to escape King's Landing after Rhaenyra's occupation. During the confusion of the Blacks taking the city, a sympathetic maester and a few loyal guards helped Alicent flee the Red Keep. Disguised as a septa, she boarded a ship sailing toward Old Town, seeking refuge in the Citadel and with her own kin, the Hightowers. However, what she found in Old Town shocked her. House Hightower, though nominally loyal to the Greens, had grown tired of the bloodshed. The maesters whispered of doom for all of House Targaryen if the war continued. The people of the Reach were starving. Merchants cried out over lost trade. Alicent had nowhere left to turn. Her son, Aegon II, had grown monstrous. The realm was in ruin. And then, reports began to come in. The Black Fleet was preparing a naval offensive to cut off remaining green supply lines at the Gullet, the stretch of water between Driftmark and Blackwater Bay. It would be the most strategic and deadly battle of the war. The shift: why Alicent turned to House Black. So why did Alicent throw her support behind the enemy? Several key reasons explain this unprecedented move. 1. The realization of guilt. Alicent was burdened by guilt. Guilt over crowning Aegon II against Viserys' wishes. Guilt over letting her father manipulate her. Guilt over the war. As the weight of loss settled on her, the deaths of her children, the destruction of the kingdom, Alicent began to see Rhaenyra not as a usurper, but as a rightful queen who had been betrayed. 2. The monster her son became. Aegon II had become everything she feared. He murdered, drank himself into stupors, and burned anyone who defied him. He was no king, just a tyrant hiding behind the Iron Throne. Alicent could no longer defend his actions. 3. The Maester's influence. In Old Town, the Maesters quietly whispered about restoring balance. The war had to end, and the Blacks, particularly Rhaenyra's son Jace Valerion and the Sea Snake, Corlys Valerion, offered peace and negotiation. The Maesters may have persuaded Alicent to act in the realm's interest. 4. A final attempt to save Westeros. Haunted by loss and tormented by visions of fire and blood, Alicent chose to back the Blacks in the Battle of the Gullet. She offered them intelligence, maps of green positions, weaknesses in naval defenses, and political connections in the Reach. The Battle of the Gullet, Allisons Role. The Battle of the Gullet was a turning point in the Dance of the Dragons. House Valerion's fleet, loyal to the Blacks, clashed with Triarchy remnants and Green-aligned forces attempting to bring reinforcements to Aegon II. With Alicent's secret information, the Blacks were able to ambush the Green ships, destroy supply lines, and trap thousands of enemy soldiers on the beaches. The battle was brutal. Dragons scorched the seas, ships shattered, and smoke choked the skies. But the Blacks emerged victorious. Corlys Valerion later acknowledged that without the information from their unexpected ally, they may have lost. Alicent Hightower, the queen who started the war, had helped end it. The aftermath, consequences. Word of Alicent's defection spread quickly. To the Greens, she became a traitor. To the Blacks, a cautionary symbol, someone who had seen the cost of pride and ambition. But history remembers her differently. Some call her a coward who turned when the tide shifted. Others view her as a tragic figure who tried to undo the horrors she helped unleash. Alicent spent her final days in quiet exile. Refusing to return to court, she took residence in a remote sept near the arbor, where she spent her days in prayer and writing. Rumors say she penned a memoir, now lost, where she confessed her role in the war and her regret for ever supporting Aegon's claim. Alicent's support of House Black at the Battle of the Gullet is more than a tactical twist. It's a deeply emotional and philosophical turning point. In the end, Queen Alicent's greatest act was not backing her son, nor scheming in the Red Keep. It was her decision to abandon pride and stand for what remained of peace. In the smoke and blood of the Dance of the Dragons, it was her choice to help end the war, even if it meant betraying everything she once fought for. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Westeros lore, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss another epic video. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and beware of dragons.